BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. And hello everybody, today is Wednesday, another Ripper Wednesday. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing? On Wednesdays this year I've been talking to you guys about Jack the Ripper, perhaps the world's most famous unsolved mystery. And welcome to part 2 of the double event, to use some Whitechapel terminology. 2 episodes for this Ripper Wednesday. Jack the Ripper was a serial killer who operated in England in 1888, and whatever happened before or after that is still part of the mystery. In this episode I will be discussing the book The Seduction of Mary Kelly by William J. Perring, and followers of Black Box Online Radio will know that last week I did a part 1 to this book discussion, and as you see from the title, this is the full discussion. So I'm going to do a brief recap of the material that was included in part 1. If you've already heard that segment, there is a timestamp that has been posted down below, and you can jump ahead to the new material. But I wanted everything in one episode, just in case this is the first one that someone happened to click on. And as always, you can hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Mary Kelly was the final victim of Jack the Ripper. She was murdered on November 9th of 1888, in one of the most brutal murders that the world has ever seen. And I don't mean that as an understatement. And when Jack the Ripper murdered Mary Kelly, I don't think he would have realized or could have ever possibly foreseen that he would have immortalized her in a different way. Mary Kelly is the subject of multiple books, novels, and stories about the Whitechapel case. And this one, The Seduction of Mary Kelly by William J. Perring, begins in Wales, and it actually tells the story of Mary Kelly being born in Ireland, but it starts when she's 13 years old living in Wales. And she's actually being beaten by a school teacher at the beginning of the book because she's telling these stories about how she grew up in Ireland and she used to live in a castle. And he starts beating her on her hand as a form of punishment and just telling her that she needs facts. She only needs facts. The only things that are important are facts and no more fairy tales. Very reminiscent of Charles Dickens in Hard Times with the character Thomas McChoakumchild, who said something almost to the exact effect. I'm pretty sure that's a direct reference to Hard Times by Charles Dickens. But Mary Kelly is described as someone who is very vivacious. She is very curious about life. She's very intelligent. And one thing that was described about her, in contrast to the other Ripper victims, is it appeared that she came from somewhat of an educated and upper-class background, or they said she had a touch of class in her voice, to be very precise. However, in The Seduction of Mary Kelly by William J. Perring, she's depicted as someone who grows up relatively poor, and she comes from an abusive household where her father is someone whom she's very close to, but he's referred to as a cripple in the book and someone who isn't very mobile, and he also cannot protect her from the beatings that she receives from her older brother and her mother. And in chapter 4, it was hard to read because the brother just takes off his belt and gives it to the mother, and they corner her in the room, and her mother just starts beating her, almost senseless. But then she has a brief moment of humanity when Mary Kelly just asking her, why is she doing this? And the mother is like, I live the life that I do because of economic hardship. I live the life that I do because of desperation. And she goes on to reveal that she is working as a prostitute, and she also ends up drinking heavily because she has to do that part, that occupation, as a way to earn money so that they can survive. Absolutely no justifications for the beatings. But I think what they're trying to show is that Mary Kelly is involved with a lot of very, very serious emotional abuse, and not only abuse, but also disconnection. A lot of this would change when Mary Kelly's house burns down and both of her parents end up passing away, which more or less leaves her as an orphan. But even though she has a bad relationship with the teacher at the school that was beating her, the headmaster of the school almost takes her in under his wing and wants to be very nurturing, very encouraging. And he even encourages her to go to art school because he thinks that she's a talented artist. And there's some aspects of Mary Kelly's story where they show that she is a creative type, the type of person who would walk through the bookstore and just put her hands on the books and develop a type of, emotional fascination with what could be found in them. As time goes by in the novel, Mary Kelly ends up marrying a man named Thomas, and they have a very pure romance at first, but when they try to be intimate together, they experience some types of sexual dysfunction. And even though it's not elaborated on heavily in the book, it's almost as if Mary Kelly is very unsatisfied with their relationship because of the lack of physicality. Thomas is very loving and very caring, but the actual acts of intimacy do not take place very well. And Mary Kelly goes on to develop a relationship with somebody else, a man named Evan, whom she has an affair with, and she actually gets pregnant because of that affair. And this is another part of the book that was very hard to read. And this is when she confesses to her husband that she's had an affair and she's pregnant by the other man, and the husband just asks her, "Is it over?" And she says yes, and she closes her eyes, expecting him to hit her in the face, but then he ends up just accepting her and forgiving her and saying that it's fine, we're going to have the baby, we're going to surround the baby with love, if it's over, I still love you. And Mary Kelly has this very odd emotional shift, and it goes back to the stories that she told when she was 13 about growing up in Ireland, when she said that she made up all of these things about her childhood. Now she has to make up things about her adulthood, and it appears that she doesn't have a deep love for her husband Thomas, but she's going to start acting out the role and carrying out the role and just standing by him because he accepted her, and she does appreciate that to a certain extent. And there's even this talk about the emotional shift that she would have experienced when she is just when she is having to pretend to love him, but she almost reaches a point where in the book she says she's no longer pretending. It's almost as if she's just accepted this way of life. Now, because this is a novel, part of me was hoping that the stories from Ireland were true, that Mary Kelly did indeed grow up in a castle. Maybe her family was very wealthy or something and they lost it all and they had to go to Wales. But it appears that that was something that she had created in her imagination, and those were indeed fairy tales. Prior to the affair, there's a very interesting scene in the book The Seduction of Mary Kelly, where Mary Kelly is with the other man, Evan, and she sees a woman walk out of a carriage in a blue dress. And she is just absolutely mesmerized by the woman walking in the blue dress. And I don't know if this was intentional on the part of William J. Perring, but the girl in the blue dress is a literary figure that we will see from time to time appearing, and this might be a pure coincidence, but there's actually a YouTube channel called Girl in a Blue Dress, and I went back and I watched her video on this literary figure, and, just this is her analysis I'm citing, and that is that there are three major girls in the blue dress that are featured in Disney films. One of them is Alice from Alice in Wonderland, one of them is Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Wait, that might not have been Disney, I take it back, but there are three girls in the blue dress: Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and Wendy from Peter Pan. And they are depicted wearing blue dresses for a reason, because the girl in the blue dress is meant to represent someone who is living an ordinary, mundane life, and she's pulled away into a world of magic, or a world that experiences some type of paranormal or supernatural capabilities. And then when she returns to the earthly world, nobody believes her. Nobody is really aware that she had this type of mystical experience. So all she has are the memories, and it's something that has affected her personality, and it leads her to growth. And that's what that scene reminded me of. So, and if you want to watch the full presentation, the channel is called Girl in a Blue Dress. And she has several different videos about different subjects. It's like a vlog, but that's the video that stood out the most to me. So Mary Kelly is someone who does have a very big mind and a very big imagination, but those scenes were very difficult to read about her having the affair and cheating on her husband. And I would like to give a shout out to Until Tomorrow 9, who wrote this into the comment section last week on the episode that I did on the seduction of Mary Kelly, saying that, all right, we know a little bit about Mary Kelly's life. We know that she grew up in Ireland, or at least it's reported that she was born in Ireland. But if we don't actually have all of these historical facts about her life until she was murdered on November 9th of 1888, how are we able to create these stories? What is the point of creating these novels about Mary Kelly? And another one that I brought up was Jack the Ripper, A True Love Story by Win Weston Davies, who is actually a descendant of Mary Kelly. He is her great nephew. And I think that the intention of this is to provide a backstory to Mary Kelly so she's not only thought of as a dead body. If you go to Google Images and you view the crime scene photos of Mary Kelly, it's absolutely horrific what the Ripper did to her. And I think that William J. Perring's intent with this was just to try to get people to think of her as a person, someone who is dealing with flaws, someone who is dealing with hardships in life, someone who's dealing with the human experiences, as opposed to being just a person who was murdered by Jack the Ripper. And also, I think that a lot of people have a type of connection to Mary Kelly. They become enamored with Mary Kelly as opposed to the other Jack the Ripper victims. And yes, I think it's because they're attracted to the illustrations of her that have been created. They're attracted to the narrative that has been established. But as time goes on in the story, there are certain points in the book that really do stand out to me more than others. Mary Kelly's married to this man named Thomas, and then he is involved in an accident and he passes away. I told you she's raising a son. That wasn't Thomas's biological child. The child was named Owen. Actually, he was the son of Evan, the other man in her life. But one of the scenes that, again, is very hard to read in the book is when he starts developing this type of illness, and she just brings her son to a doctor, just saying like he's breathing in a very irregular way. She thinks that he's going to die, and the doctor more or less just says, "Give him some medicine, take him home, and don't come back. It will save you some money." She's like, "How can you be so callous? How can you be so heartless?" And he just said, "Years of experience." So I think that what the book is trying to show is that Mary Kelly experienced a lot of emotional disconnect. She experienced a lot of just this hard and callous way of life that people were just always not able to completely give her the full picture of love. She gets these different fragments of love, like the very intense physical connections that she has with Evan, and she has, the very gentle type of love from Thomas. Her father cared about her. Her mother even had moments of humanity, but it never completely gets there. And this is also illustrated in one of the later scenes in the book where she goes back to the headmaster that took her under his wing and just thought very highly of her, the man who said that she should go to art school. And he is someone who was very encouraging of her career in the past, her artistic career in the past. And she says, "All right, I've made my decision now. I'm going to art school." And he simply tells her, "It's too late. You have a child. Even if you could find a way to get admitted to the art school, you don't have a way to fund yourself. Even if you had a full scholarship, you don't have a way to pay for your daily life and daily expenses." And I think that is another clear point of it, where she just wants things to work out. She wants things to be somewhat perfect, but it's almost impossible for that to happen because they're just, firstly, life is imperfect, life is unfair. But also, she's not going to experience this type of connection to anyone in a completely seamless way. And this is the first volume. William J. Perring wrote a second volume to The Seduction of Mary Kelly. I'm very curious to read that one in the future to see where the story goes, because this hardly leaves us with the ending and the culmination of Jack the Ripper and attacking Mary Kelly. But one thing that isn't really disputed too much, even in the book The Five, that talks about how it's possible that 3 of the women who were murdered by Jack the Ripper were not prostitutes, but the book The Five even argues that Mary Kelly was most likely a full-time prostitute. Liz Stride, the 3rd victim who was killed by Jack the Ripper, is said to have been an occasional prostitute, but she most likely was not working when she was murdered. And again, that's the subject of the book The Five. But Mary Kelly is going to go on to become a prostitute, and we aren't completely there in The Seduction of Mary Kelly as to how and why that would have taken shape. But it's a very fascinating story, and I mean, I told you guys that I read this with the audio version on Kindle Fire because I have some problems concentrating, but I mean, I think it's well written, I think it's engaging, and I was really surprised that I had so many conflicting emotions about Mary Kelly, because when she is just, always being the victim, I'm on her side. I thought she was going to be the hero of the story. Once she starts cheating on her husband, even me, just some guy who's reading this book, is thinking, wow, oh my goodness, like, why would you do that? Like, you have a lot of a lot of conflicting emotions, but some people say that a good story makes you feel things. And one more time, the book is The Seduction of Mary Kelly, Volume 1 by William J. Perring. And if you enjoyed this episode, you can hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. This was not meant to be a full book review, but rather a book discussion where I just pulled out some ideas from The Seduction of Mary Kelly, and I am responding to them. But if you have any ideas for future episodes of Ripper Wednesday, you can put them in the comments section down below. And you can also go through some of the links in the description box. One of them is for buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com/blackboxonlineradio allows you to make a donation or contribution to help support the show. Anybody who makes a donation will get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. And that will be all for me now. I will see you guys tomorrow for True Crime Talk Radio in the morning, coming to you at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live here on YouTube. And until next time.